Okay everyone, since we're all stranded on this desert island, we need to work together in order to survive. And the first thing we need to do is form a team to go find food. I can lead the team. I had the most money back on the mainland, so I'm probably the most qualified. Okay. So whatever the food team finds, I will keep, let's say, 90% of it. 90% of the food that we all need to survive? Well, I took the risk in starting the team, so I deserve the most food. Yeah, no, we're not doing that. We also need to build shelter. I think there's a pile of bamboo somewhere that we can... Ooh, sorry, this is actually my pile of bamboo. Yeah, I called dibs on it when we got here, so if we construct a shelter from it, it'll technically belong to me. But, I mean, if you guys want to stay in it, you can, I don't know, maybe pay me some of your food. You want us to give you our food so we can stay in the shelter. You're right, that doesn't make sense, because first we need to exchange the food for some kind of a currency, and then you would pay me with the currency. Oh, guys, seashells is the new currency. I'm sorry, why do you think you're in charge here? Well, I have the most money, so that makes me the most intelligent, talented, and qualified person here, right? And where did you get all this money? That's not... What? But that's... I don't understand why that question is relevant. Okay, lastly, we need to send an SOS message back to the mainland. Luckily, I think I can get the transponder from the airplane working. Knock, knock, it's me again. I also own the transponder because I'm standing closest to it. Is this guy fucking kidding? And I'm totally cool with you guys using it for the SOS message. I just want to make sure that I am represented accurately. You know, just let them know that I am very chill, hardworking, extremely generous. You know, things that are like obviously true about me. You know what, man? I've had enough. Okay, why should we listen to a single thing that you're saying? Oh, because the biggest, strongest guy here thinks that I'm in charge, so he's gonna make you all do what I want. We are spreading democracy and freedom.
Flush and I'll do, and you don't stop. Shoot shot, go out to the parking lot.
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody's fly. DJ spinning, I said my.
So I push them all away. I'm acting so strange. They're so pretty, it hurts. I'm not talking about boys, I'm talking about girls. They're so pretty with their button-up shirts.
Look at what Vosh said today.
Is not make the shooting of that 16-year-old girl the hinge of our next big civil rights anti-cop push. Please, God, all you have to do is wait 24 hours and there will be a way worse police shooting.
I don't like that a lot of young leftists get introduced to leftist ideas through way of these debate bros. A lot of them claim to be these ultra progressives, but it's like they have no idea of what's going on in the actual world. So that's the reason why they have shit takes like this, or they get ultra defensive when people from the community call them out. Like, bro, we get it. You can debunk the 1350 statistics all day long, but ask one of these motherfuckers to humanize me. I am tired of seeing my oppression being used as talking points to fuel your ego when you debate fascies. This stuff isn't a debate, it's people's lives.
This is my autism service dog, Finnegan. He is a 5-year-old black lab. Finnegan is allowed to go with me wherever I go under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is a federal law. For a dog to be a service dog, they must be trained to perform tasks that directly relate to helping the handler's disability. Finnegan is trained to nudge me when he hears alarms like the oven, a timer, a fire alarm, etc., if I'm not responding fast enough. He also does deep pressure therapy, where he applies his body weight to my legs and chest to force deep breathing when necessary. Finnegan is trained to buffer crowds by walking circles around me, creating a physical barrier to prevent others from getting too close. Finn can follow my family members when we're out so that I don't get separated from them. He can also help locate them if we do get separated. Lastly, he is able to go into my house or wherever I'm sleeping at night to search and respond if there were an intruder present. Between just the initial costs and countless hours of specialized training, Finnegan is worth thousands of dollars. He's a very special dog, and I am very lucky to have him.
Vosh says that people are upset with him because he talks about black separatism, and people didn't like that.
I talked about how I wasn't a fan of black separatism, the idea that the best way to solve race issues is for all the black folk to just up and go and live in Africa or whatever. And that discourse got a lot of people mad at me.
And insisted that he should listen to black people. Describes it as an issue of people weaponized being talked over against him. The only issue is, that's not what happened. The context that Vosh is giving just isn't true. Vosh didn't have a conversation on black separatism. as he claims.
I talked about how I wasn't a fan of black separatism, the idea that the best way to solve race issues is for all the black folk to just up and go and live in Africa or whatever.
He had a debate on black nationalism. Didn't know what black nationalism was.
Black nationalists are just white nationalists, except black.
People pointed out that he probably meant to talk about black separatism, and instead of apologizing and saying, hey, sorry, I messed up, he finds a black person and then gives them misinformation on the conflict so that she'll agree with him in order for him to gain validity.
Avoiding racist tropes in fantasy, part 5. Allow your BIPOC characters to be something other than the magical guide for the group. They don't need to be the guide, the voice of wisdom, the only one with the plan. Basically, they don't need to be this, like, side cast that's just supporting your pale MCs along their journey. This is also true for Jewish and Roma folk specifically, but also folk religions. Like, let those people be people outside of just assisting your MCs. They exist in contexts other than when they dispense wisdom, and they have value outside of those things as well. The problem is people don't allow those characters and people of other races to exist as people. They have them exist as a plot device. Avoid that.
Debate culture not only reinforces binary thinking, but it like literally makes people dumber. Like in terms of the binary thinking, like that's obvious. This whole idea that there's one right and there's one wrong, like people don't, like, please expand yourself beyond the binary in every sense, because like duality is real. Like two truths can hold at the same time, right? And then also, like, it makes people dumber because there is no, like, learning involved. There is no dialogue or critical thought involved. It's literally just, like even the people consuming the debate or consuming the back and forth, they're not actually learning anything. If anything, they're learning how to, like, present information as factual, learning how to, like, create a good argument. They're not actually learning the content of what is actually being discussed. It makes people dumber.
So you'd think that, but at any moment, your skilled job could become unskilled labor. I've mentioned this in a couple other comments, but I used to work as a paraprofessional in a kindergarten. This was about 6 years ago. And those kids were getting a unit every year in basic coding. Those kids would now be in 6th grade, so starting middle school by now. And if they have had a unit on coding every single year since kindergarten, they have a very good basic understanding of how coding works. Now, do you think that they're offering these kids these courses out of the goodness of their heart? Or do you think that they're banking on the fact that when these kids enter the workforce, coding will then be considered unskilled labor because everyone knows how to do it? For example, take typing. It used to be a skill that you had to go to school for. I remember learning to do typing when I was in elementary school all the way up through high school. It became a skill that everyone had and therefore considered unskilled labor. What I'm saying is these unskilled jobs you look down on, one day that's going to be you. And when that happens, will you join us?
This is just a reminder that trans men are not all skinny, wafy, little boyish looking dudes. Have y'all ever fucking seen a trans bear? Magical! Oh my god, magical!
This show is my childhood, so if you fuck this up, I'm gonna be mad. It's great. I approve. Okay. This is... Continue. Oh, the beanie! This is great. I approve. Huh? Bro, I'm literally Asian.
Vaush is not good for the left. If you don't know who Vaush is, he is a popular streamer on YouTube who called himself an anarcho-syndicalist, a socialist, and pushed his audience to vote for Biden. He has been in a lot of drama, ranging from racism in the form of saying the N-word and much more to sexual harassment to saying there's no moral reason why owning inappropriate pictures of children should be considered wrong.
I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child pornography should be illegal.
Just another day, another Vosh fan excusing racism in the face of protecting Vosh's big, fragile, white ego.
What's good? I hope everybody black is having an amazing day. It's time for more black ass history. Today's topic is Jenga. First of all, the word Jenga derives from the Swahili word kujenga, which means to build. Jenga is a game with wooden blocks stacked in alternating directions. Each player takes a turn removing a block and placing it back on top until the structure collapses. The alleged creator of the game is a white woman named Leslie Scott. Her parents were European colonizers, so she was born in Tanzania and raised in Kenya. Swahili was their second language. In the 1970s, the family moved to the port city of Takoradi, Ghana. Now, she claims her and her family made up the game, but there is hella proof that this is a traditional game from Ghana called Takoradi blocks. In the traditional Takoradi game, each player would take turns removing a block and keep it. When the structure finally collapsed, the player with the most blocks was the winner. Leslie's game is just a modified version of this. She recalls first playing this game with a wooden block set that was gifted to her little brother in Ghana. Wood, timber, lumber, whatever you want to call it, is one of Ghana's main exports. Jenga blocks are a miniature version of the much larger blocks of timber found in the African forests that were chopped for export. At the ports, they will often stack the wood in alternating directions to promote airflow between the planks and keep them dry. Jenga also draws aesthetic inspiration from Dogon architecture, mainly found in Mali, West Africa. The Dogon used dry stone masonry, and their structures included small rectangular openings throughout. These rectangular compartments are known as wind catchers, and they were used for storing goods and keeping them dry. Since the release of the game in the 1970s, Leslie Scott's net worth is in the tens of millions of dollars. She's even been named one of the top 10 game inventors in the world, selling over 60 million units to date. So next time you see a Jenga game going on, knock all that shit over. Shut the fuck up!
I spent about 80% of my time talking about Regina, and the other 20% of the time I was praying for someone else to bring her up so I could talk about her more.
I'm a finesser, a slick talker, and a bitch snatcher. After I smoke this wood, you finna hit this blade after.
My opinion? Well, I've got no use for him. I honestly believe that municipal sewage treatment facilities only wish they could be as full of shit as he is. Just my opinion. Hey, you have a good night. Fuck the trolls.
This rainy day is temporary. The contrast is why we got 'em. The sun shining through is just a cloud away, way. I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending.
Hey y'all, this is a public service announcement, and I really don't know who needs to hear this, but hear this. I was a teenager during the AIDS epidemic, well, during the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, and I promise you, on any god that you think exists, make some kind of a correlation between monkeypox and queer people in front of me, and you'll get folded into a fucking paper crane. And that's coming from someone who's nonviolent. Because it's self-defense to knock your teeth out your mouth. Because I saw the damage. I watched the degradation and the social deaths of people who were already physically dying. Say it with your chest out, 'cause it's gonna be the last thing you ever say. I'm just saying. Just saying.
So when you gonna tell her that we did that too?
Today, I am going to share the honest and difficult aspects of running an African vegan page. People say carve a niche on social media to grow, but not all niches are what is favored. Take my page for one. I am a Black African woman sharing West African vegan food and living in North America. It is a very specific niche and a hard one to navigate. Not only is there a significant barrier in just familiarizing my audience with my content because the cuisines of sub-Saharan African countries to many are unventured territories, but also vegan food is not widely received like non-vegan food. In the end, we are a minority. And I do want to make it clear that vegans and non-vegans are always welcome on my page. Lastly, we all know too well how social media algorithms do not like BIPOC content. So in the end, it is truly a miracle that I have a following like I do. But don't let this fool you, because behind the scenes, I had to and continuously have to work 10 times harder just to scratch the surface. I have had my blog for 7 years, and only in the last 2 years did I crack 4,000 followers. I have said time and time again that it is a hobby, but with my meager PhD income and rapid inflation, extra sources of income are always welcome, and my labor to share what I share takes time and money. Whether I pitch myself to brands or I am approached, most often brands undervalue my work because of the concern that African food content and my expertise is not worth paying my due compensation, regardless of the size of my page or engagement. Recipes by non-African creators on vague African food crowds the first page of Google, meaning less clicks and less revenue on my blog. So I am caught between being frustrated every day, counting pennies, and then having to pick myself up because something I love so dearly and is needed in the world is causing more and more financial strain. It is hard and I can easily walk away rather than complain, but I have settled on the payment that what I am doing now, building more awareness on plant-based African food, can make the life of a future African vegan food blogger easier. For me, I am walking so that they can run.
Why is Vosh?
So I have been very hesitant to follow Bosch, Hassan, all these Twitch streamer type of leftist debate me bro YouTuber, because there's something about their demeanor, the way that they analyze subject, the way that they speak about people, and especially their fan base, that looks and feels a lot like what the old skeptic, anti-feminist, anti-SJW community used to feel like. Don't get me wrong, I align with them politically way more than I do with people like Armor Skeptic or The Amazing Atheist. However, something about this appeal, this hyper-masculine expression of intellectual domination worries me. They seem to perpetuate certain attitudes that are at times even antithetical to intersectionalism, and that is worrisome considering that their audiences are comprised of mainly young men who might need guidance in that regard.
Now, I'm not saying I'm massively autistic, but this would get me to eat my broccoli.
This is my stop. Got to get off. I may go pop. Excuse me. Excuse me. I've got to be direct.
Sandwiches, I'll take 4. It is always morally acceptable to steal from corporate businesses. They're rich and you're not. Steal whatever you want. Hand soap, toilet paper, hot sauce. I've never bought a bottle of Tabasco sauce in my entire life. I've always stolen it from Chipotle. Just make sure you don't get caught. Steal a chair. Who gives a shit? Yum!
I hate the climate on the left, and I'm going to explain this through debate bro culture because it's topical right now, and it just seems like a fun thing to talk about. I hate debate bros. I hate people who die on the hill that you have to debate. I absolutely despise that mindset. I think the debates are, for the most part, pretty useless for like the people debating. And like even for the watchers, like it depends on why you watch the debate, right? The issue with debates is that, like, they're usually a spectacle. That's all they really are, is a spectacle. It's people observing. They want to watch people get owned. They want to watch people get destroyed in the marketplace of ideas. They want to watch all this, all these, they just like, it feels good to watch people get owned. I watch debates. I still watch debates. Despite the fact that I hate them, I acknowledge the fact that I watch them because I like to watch people get owned and it's funny. But in a practical sense, right? Debates are stupid because they don't actually really, the two people debating, I've never actually seen two people debate and convince each other of like that one of their opinions is actually right and the other person's wrong. I've never seen that. It's purely for audience entertainment, right? And it's not to say that debates are useless. Being able to formulate your opinions into like a concise argument and also presenting your worldview in a way that's open for criticism is important in developing your worldview, I think, for some people. But like, that's not the only way. That's a very actively engaged sort of way that doesn't really benefit you to be open and accepting to new ideas, because it's very aggressive. Like, what is school, for example? School or books or watching YouTube videos, or reading audiobooks. These are passive forms of engagement with content that I think are much more beneficial to actually learning and understanding concepts that don't require you to be defensive. They allow you to be open because these forms are passive and you're doing them by choice. You're consuming them by choice. I mean, you watch debates by choice, but the information being presented is usually in a very declaratory manner. And very rarely do they actually, are there actual like people citing information or anything like that. And this is why I hate the climate on the left, because the fact that we're even having this argument is stupid in the first place. If you like to watch debates and you understand why you enjoy watching debates, then watch debates. If you don't, then don't. The right is so politically powerful because they tend to work together regardless of where they align on the political spectrum. Like, neoliberals will work with centrists, will work with like alt-right, will work with Nazis, will work with conservatives, because they realize that their ideas might not align completely down the line. They realize that they mostly align at some point, so they work together. The left doesn't do that. The left is so much infighting, and it's perfectly encapsulated in this whole debate bro argument that we're having right now. And it's just silly and goofy and stupid. The tankies, the anarcho-communists, the democratic socialists, we all need to be working together to form some form of like class solidarity and move toward what we want, and pro-labor. We need to work together, because at some level, even we might disagree on specifics, we agree on the big stuff for the most part, right?
By Birkin. Another Birkin. But what makes these two Birkins different? And what small feature about them divides the Hermes collector community? Let's talk about it.
No reasons they wanna see us end up like we Regina or Mean Girl. Princess or queen, tomboy or king. You've heard a lot you've never seen. Mother Earth, Mother Mary, rise to the top. Divine feminine, I'm feminine.
Put a finger down for my fellow Americans. Put a finger down if you're proud of your country, and you always will be, no matter what. Put a finger down if you think our federal budget should prioritize a strong military first before anything else. Put a finger down if you think America's a Christian nation and our government should reflect that. Put a finger down if you think people should work for their success instead of having it handed to them with a higher minimum wage. Put a finger down if you think America's under attack from a huge influx of immigration. Put a finger down if you think police violence isn't as bad as some people make it out to be. Put a finger down if you think there are two genders and you don't get to pick what gender you're born with. Put a finger down if you think abstract art without meaning isn't art. Put a finger down if we should be punishing criminals for their crimes, not rehabilitating them. And put a finger down if you know that the 2020 election was provably rigged. Congrats! If you put 5 or more fingers down, you're actually probably a fascist. So I'm gonna need you to get the fuck out, actually.
On the block list, that's if that pussy trash, I'm polo.
And this is no hate to the original poster at all. It's just seeing this made me really want to talk about the whole idea of fatness and talk about it as a social construct and kind of where it came from to be associated with as a bad thing instead of just like a descriptor for somebody. So just want to preface this with literally my whole life up until recently, I have been fat. I was 250 pounds and I'm barely 5'1". So like I was considered extremely obese, but was healthy nonetheless, because fat people often are healthy. People would often be afraid to call me fat because it was like this disgusting, dirty word, when in reality it's just a descriptor. If somebody is fat or plus size and they prefer to not be called that, then like you should respect that. But also if you are plus size and or fat and you don't want to be called fat, you need to unpack where that comes from. And we're going to get into the history of fatness very briefly. So in the 16th century, it was very common for women to be fat. In fact, if you were fat, that was like more desirable, and this can be shown in Renaissance paintings of all kinds. But the thing that is important to note is that it was white women who were considered more beautiful when they were fat. And in these paintings where you see white women being the standard, you can see that they were often painted in juxtaposition with black women who were skinny and sickly looking. So it was never like fatness is beautiful, it's white fatness is beautiful, and black women are skinny and frail and disgusting. It was never just like fat is beautiful across the board. And so when slavery picked up and they started to notice that like, hey, a lot of these black women have the body type of the women that we were praising before, but I don't like the way that it looks on them. And what was the only difference? They were black. So then quickly the standard for beauty started to change, and fat was no longer considered or equated to beauty. It was now equated with black femininity. It was no longer something that was looked upon and praised and loved, but something that was seen as very negative, very bad, very just ugh. It was also used as a reason to further link black women and their femininity to animalistic tendencies. So it's like white women were fat because they were beautiful, but black women are fat because they're like animals and they can't control themselves, they can't control their urges, and they overeat and they indulge in all of the things that you're not supposed to indulge in, and so fatness is now disgusting. So the idea of fatness being an inherently bad thing or something that you should not call somebody comes from anti-blackness. It's the whole construct of weight and being overweight and being fat and that being a negative thing. It all stems from anti-blackness. So if you do not want to be called fat, or you're hesitant about calling people fat, you need to understand that you're actually being anti-black, because there's nothing wrong with being fat. And fat was beautiful. Fat was the standard. It was what women were striving to be until people realized black women were also fat. And then all of a sudden it was no longer the standard. And then you had to be as skinny as possible. You had to eat as little as possible. You had to restrict yourself because you couldn't be like these beasts. You couldn't be disgusting like them. So fatness is not inherently a bad thing.
Are you saying I'm a racist chauvinist? Okay, dude, listen. I actually have friends in the global south, so I can't be a racist chauvinist.